Hello everybody, this is David Mitchell. I promised you 26 questions that I am frequently asked about Messiah ben Yosef, so this video is about the next 5 questions. That's questions 8 to 12, and they all concern the origins of Messiah ben Yosef. So let's go. Number 8. So what are the views on the origins of this mysterious Messiah? There are several views. They all tend to date the origin of Messiah ben Yosef after the time of Jesus. In the 19th century, Gustav Dalman thought that ben Yosef arose as the result of an inner tension in Jewish thought between the sufferings of the Messiah, as they are described in Isaiah 53, and the Messiah's triumph. He said the rabbinic sages made Messiah ben Yosef up in order to reconcile this apparent contradiction between the sufferings and the triumph of the Messiah. So they gave the sufferings to one Messiah, Messiah ben Yosef, and they gave the triumph to another, to Messiah ben David. A little later, the Italian Rabbi David Castelli thought that Messiah ben Yosef was a gesture of goodwill to the remains of the Ephraimites, for they deserved a Messiah too, just like the Judeans, but it had to be a less important Messiah, one that dies to make way for Messiah ben David. And others preferred to see ben Yosef as a legend arising from some suffering historical figure. So Adolf Jelinek thought it was Josephus when he surrendered to the Romans. Moses Butenwieser said it was Alexander the Great. David Baron thought it was a rabbinic memory of the life of Jesus, and there have been other minority views, some seeing him as a Samaritan belief, which is partially true. But the most popular view by far was that Messiah ben Yosef reflected the death of the messianic pretender Shimon bar Kokhba in the year 135 of the Christian period. This idea was put forth by Michael Hamburger and Alfred Edersheim in the late 19th century, and it has been a frequently cited view for the last 150 years. Question number 9. Do I agree with these views? No, I don't believe that Messiah ben Yosef arose from the death of Bar Kokhba or from some other incident in Israelite history. I believe Messiah ben Yosef is in the scriptures, and just as Jacob promised a Messiah to Judah, so he also promised a Messiah to Joseph. And Moses too promises a Messiah to Joseph, and there are references to the Josephite Messiah all through the Torah and the prophets and the writings. Question number 10. Where does Messiah, son of Joseph, first appear in the Bible? Messiah ben Yosef first appears in the Torah in the two blessings of Joseph. The first blessing is by Jacob in Genesis 49 and the second by Moses in Deuteronomy 33. He first appears in Jacob's blessing in Genesis 49. After Jacob promises a hero to Judah in verse 10, he also promises a savior to his beloved Joseph in verse 24. And Joseph's blessing is a big blessing. It's by far the longest of all Jacob's blessings on his sons. And he recounts Joseph's sufferings at the hand of his enemies. He says Joseph's sufferings from his brothers were like being pierced by arrows. But Jacob says that Joseph overcame and triumphed by the power of Shaddai. And then he says that from thence, that is from Shaddai, will come forth for Joseph a shepherd rock of Israel, Misham Ro'eh Even Israel. Now we know that Ma'aseh Avot Siman Labanim, the deeds of the fathers are a sign for the sons. Or as Ramban says, everything that befell the patriarchs is a sign for their descendants. And in the same way, this hero promised to Joseph will suffer before triumphing, this coming Messiah ben Yosef. And in the same way, the words shepherd rock are very important, for the rock is the name of the God of Israel. And Ramban has a lot of interesting things to say on this in his commentary on the rock in Deuteronomy 32, verse 4. And of course, the shepherd is a divine title too. This person who is to come from Shaddai, the son of Joseph, is no ordinary man. He is a shepherd rock from Shaddai. Where else does Messiah ben Yosef appear in the Torah? His second appearance is in Deuteronomy 33:17. Moses is blessing the tribes of Joseph, and he says, his firstborn ox is his glory, and the horns of a re'em are his horns. Now, many translations miss it, but there are two totally different kinds of ox here, the shor and the re'em. The shor is a domestic ox, Bos Taurus. He is born to servitude and to die as a sacrifice. That was the destiny of a firstborn ox in Israel. But the re'em is totally different. He is the mighty aurochs. The aurochs is now extinct, but it was a fearsome beast. Julius Caesar saw it in the Black Forest and said that it was almost as big as an elephant. The aurochs was 2 meters high to the shoulders and 3 meters to the tips of its great horns, and it hated the sight of mankind. So the aurochs was very fierce. Nobody messed around with the aurochs. So we have two kinds of oxen, a shor and a re'em. The shor is a slave, the re'em is a king. The shor is a captive, the re'em is free. The shor is destined to die, the re'em is destined to life, for it was not acceptable in Israel's sacrifice. And Moses' prophecy says that the one promised to Joseph will be a shor, and then he will have the great horns of a re'em. That means he will be sacrificed like a shor before he triumphs like an all-conquering re'em. Now, if we ask who the son of Joseph is, the rabbis have two answers. It's either Joshua or Messiah ben Yosef. But it can't be Joshua, for this promised one will conquer all the nations to the ends of the earth. But Joshua only conquered the 7 nations of Canaan. And so it must be another Joshua, a second Joshua, a greater Joshua, who will conquer all the nations of the earth. Of course, to understand this, we have to be aware of the difference between a shor and a re'em. For those who first heard Moses, this was basic knowledge, just like a horse is not a zebra. But nowadays it's a distinction that is not widely known, and translators have not always helped. Now, to be honest, these two blessings in Joseph say more about Messiah ben Yosef than about the Messiah from Judah. But the two Messiahs are alike in this. Just as the Messiah promised to Judah is like David, but even greater, so the Messiah promised to Joseph is like Joshua, but even greater, and he will conquer not only the promised land, but the whole world. Question number 12. Does Messiah ben Yosef appear in the prophets? Yes, Messiah ben Yosef is hinted at all through the Tanakh. The most obvious passage in the prophets is the suffering shepherd king in Zechariah 12. Like Joseph, he is betrayed to death by Judah. Like Joseph, he is sold for pieces of silver. Like Joseph, he is mourned as a slain firstborn. Like Joseph, he is pierced through and given over to death. In fact, he shares characteristics both of the house of Joseph and of David, like a second Joseph and a second Josiah. Isaiah too famously speaks of a coming king who will endure suffering and death as an atonement for many and then triumph. But what many do not realize is that this figure is robed in Josephite imagery. Like Joseph, he is a fruitful vine springing out of dry ground, just as we see him in Genesis 49. And there are also allusions to Messiah ben Yosef, to a coming Josephite king, among the resurgent tribes of Joseph, spoken of by Obadiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel. And Habakkuk calls Joshua the Messiah of the Lord, who made the sun stand still, and he looks for another second Joshua to appear. And Micah's ruler, who is to be born in Bethlehem, is called a brother of the Josephites, not of the Judahites. Remember, Bethlehem was Rachel's town long before it was David's. And it was in Bethlehem that her prayer was answered to have a son to succeed Joseph. And Micah's coming king will restore the former dominion to Israel, that is Joseph's dominion, and the authority of the house of David will come to him. In the Psalms, the clearest passages to speak about Messiah ben Yosef are Psalm 1, whose righteous king is like a second Joshua, meditating on the law day and night, and like a second Joseph who prospers in all he does. And this Joshua-Joseph figure is juxtaposed with the second Messiah, the David Messiah of Psalm 2. And then there is Psalm 92, where we meet an anointed one, a Messiah, a Mashiach, like Joseph's flourishing green plant of Genesis 49, and like the aurochs with its great horns of Deuteronomy 33:17, and he is anointed with fresh oil. This is a Josephite Messiah, but we can find him in other Psalms as well. So that's it. Thank you for listening. God bless you. Blessed be Jesus, the Messiah.